Hey guys, tonight we're slipping off our modern shoes, yes. Even the memory foam ones, and stepping barefoot into a Viking longhouse. It's not exactly cozy by today's standards. There's no insulation, the floor is dirt, you're crouched just inside the doorway, your eyes adjusting to the gloom, your nose twitching at the layered scents of firewood, fermenting fish, and unwashed tunics. Not because of any dramatic Viking battle, no. Just the gastrointestinal adjustment to their diet might take you out before sunrise. Welcome home. The entire building smells like smoked meat, damp wool, and at least one wet dog. The first thing you notice is the smoke. It doesn't so much rise as swirl lazily around your face. There's no chimney, just a hole in the roof that may or may not be open. The fire in the middle of the room smolders low, casting flickering orange light on woolen cloaks draped along the wall. Judging by his beard alone, he's either important or just gave up shaving decades ago. Near him, a girl is braiding her hair, humming something off-key. It echoes faintly in the rafters. Maybe they did, and maybe you're just unlucky. Either way, your eyes water and your lungs feel like you've licked a bonfire. But you're here now. The wind howls outside, but in here the air is thick with peat smoke and 100 years of lived-in breath. You sleep, eat, argue, and probably give birth, all in this one communal space, which might explain why no one makes eye contact. You probably won't survive this. There are wooden pegs everywhere, holding up cloaks, ropes, and things you're afraid to touch. Someone laughs softly in the corner. You think it's about you, but can't be sure. It doesn't matter. It's cramped, it's smoky, and your personal space has been reduced to about 3 square feet. But the fire is warm, the furs are thick, and in the low hum of snoring, stirring and mumbling prayers to long-forgotten gods, you begin to drift. A dried fish hangs directly above the door, its mouth permanently open like it died mid-gasp. Honestly, no one seems to care either way. The cat follows close behind, eyeing both the child and your bootlaces. You tuck them in. Either way, the sound wobbles through the air like a drunken mosquito. No one looks up. It's just another day, another smoky evening in the long house. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. The straw pokes through the woolen mat, and you wonder how many fleas you've just made friends with. But the warmth from the fire is oddly comforting. But after a while, the steady rhythm of life around you begins to settle into your bones. You're not expected to do much right now. Just sit, breathe, maybe stir something fast, or swat a chicken off the bed if it tries to nest in your blanket. And the rhythmic crackle of wood feels almost like a lullaby. The lullaby also featured the occasional goat bleat and someone loudly clearing their throat. And hey, let me know where you're re-listening from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You push the heavy wooden door, open it creaks like it's part of a horror movie soundtrack, and step inside. Woman glances up from stirring something thick and brown in a pot, possibly stew. Possibly gluing grunts in your direction. That's probably your welcome. You look around. The longhouse lives up to its name. Narrow, wooden, stretching down like the inside of a ship flipped upside down. There's a central corridor and raised platforms on either side, lined with furs, straw, and people in varying states of nap or mild annoyance. Chickens peck casually along the edges. One of them seems to be judging you. Man snores from under a thick pile of reindeer hides. There's no privacy here. The concept hasn't really been invented yet. Historians still argue whether Viking longhouses were as smoky as we imagine, or if they developed clever ways to ventilate the space. The walls are made of overlapping planks, fruin sturdy and darkened with age and soot. You find a space on one of the raised platforms and sit. A child toddles past, chasing a ball of yarn. You're not sure if she lives here or just wandered in. Above you, the ceiling is crisscrossed with beams and hanging herbs. Some of them are drying. Some might be forgotten. One might be a sock. It's a space made for function, not comfort. You shift a little, adjusting to the uneven surface. This is life inside a Viking longhouse. Somewhere far off, someone starts playing a lyre. Or maybe it's just a string being plucked for repair. There's nothing urgent, nothing loud. Just the rhythm of lives wrapped in fur, warmed by fire, and softened by centuries of dust and smoke. The door creaks again as another figure enters, brushing snow from their shoulders. You blink against the smoke and pull your cloak tighter around your shoulders. It's wool thick, scratchy, and woven in uneven shades of brown. No one here wears bright colors unless they've recently returned from raiding and traded for fancy dyes. And you, lucky sleeper, are not exactly raider material. The first full-body reality check comes when you realize just how much wool is involved in daily Viking life. Wool cloaks, wool tunics, wool leggings, wool socks, if you're lucky, or scraps of fur if you're not. You may have even laid your head on a wool pillow last night, which would explain why your neck feels like it was headbutted by a sheep. Across from you, a man sneezes powerfully into his own beard. No one reacts. That's just how things are. Few are brightly trimmed at the edges, likely to show off a spouse's embroidery skills. It's less about fashion and more about function. And maybe a pinch of, look, my wife can stitch a killer, not design. You notice your neighbors pulling on their tunics for the day garments cut simply, fastened with bronze or bone pins. Someone hands you a belt, nothing fancy. Just leather wrapped a few times around the waist and tied with a knot that defies logic. No one's watching, but even if they were, modesty isn't really a big concern here. It's the only real source of heat, so the whole household rotates like human kebabs, turning slowly to keep both sides of their body from freezing. Good luck untying it when nature calls. Speaking of which, there are no indoor toilets. We'll get to that trauma later. As you shuffle to your feet and stretch your aching back, you notice everyone's first topic of conversation: the weather. Because of course it is. Every so often, a spark escapes and threatens to catch a nearby blanket on fire. The story has no climax, no moral, and doesn't really end. He just stops talking and sips his way. It's comforting somehow. That's when a slippered foot casually stomps it out without comment. The Vikings lived in a place where winter lasted 10 months, and the other 2 were still pretty miserable. His sister watches, unimpressed, chewing on a bit of dried apple and kicking her heels against a timber post. Your cloak smells like you've spent the night roasting over a campfire, which technically you have. One woman stirs a clay pot of barley porridge with slow, practiced motions. Can't help but think they look mildly judgmental. It's itchy but warm, very Viking. Another passes around cups of sour whey, which smells like it could both cure and cause illness. Cold today, one man grumbles, staring out the small smoke hole in the roof like he expects the sun to crawl in and apologize. But for now, you're allowed to sit. Let the wool press in. Let the smoke do what it will. The day is long, and the longhouse longer. You chew thoughtfully. The bread is dense, flat, and has a texture reminiscent of tree bark. There's something hard in it. You hope it's a seed. Colder yesterday. Someone counters, poking at the fire with a charred stick. Colder last year, adds another. It goes on like this until someone sneezes again, and the conversation resets. Not just to the murmurs, but to the texture of sound, the crackle of fire, the rustle of straw, the soft whisper of someone weaving, and somewhere in the back, the unmistakable sound of someone muttering to themselves while sharpening a knife.
Oh, it's not threatening,
just rhythmic.
Historians still argue whether Viking longhouses had insulation techniques we call innovative or wishful thinking. Everything is dim, sepia-toned, and slightly fuzzy. Whether that's the air quality or your slowly adjusting brain is anyone's guess. Some suggest they stuffed moss between the planks. Others think it was just layers of fur and prayer. Based on your current shivering, you're inclined to believe in the latter. You step outside briefly to relieve yourself, carefully skirting a sleeping goat at the door end, are immediately slapped by a wind that feels like it's carrying tiny, invisible knives. You duck back inside and warm your hands by the central hearth. The fire itself is humble. A few burning logs, a scattering of embers, and a pile of ash that someone occasionally pokes with a stick like it offended them. As the morning continues, you begin to notice small rituals. Breakfast is humble. Grain, broth, maybe dried fish if you're lucky. A man named Ivar sits beside you, adjusting his tunic and telling a long story about a pig that once outran his cousin. Overhead, the smoke hovers in thick layers, seeping into everything. There are no windows in the longhouse, only narrow slits under the eaves to let in light or more smoke, depending on the wind. You take a moment to really listen. Nearby, a boy plays with a carved wooden horse, dragging it through the ashes, as if riding into a tiny apocalypse. Realize the floor isn't quite dirt, but packed earth layered with straw antlets beyond a centuries of history, some of which probably walked in on someone's boots. Above you, a string of dried fish wiggles gently in the smoke. Someone passes you a thick wool hood. You put it on, and instantly your ears feel like they've entered a sauna made of sheep. Eventually the fire is stoked again, the porridge pot's emptied, and everyone begins shuffling into their tasks. As the sun, at least, what counts for sun in this fog-drenched northern sky, rises higher. The longhouse starts to hum with more activity. You stretch, feeling every vertebra crack like dry twigs, and wander closer to the central fire where something in a pot is starting to bubble ominously. This lucky listener is your introduction to Viking cuisine. You brace yourself. The pot contains stew. That's the official term. Practice, it's more of a suggestion. A ladle stirs through chunks of turnip, strips of dried meat of unknown origin, and a few limp leaves that may once have been green. We're handed a wooden bowl and a slightly chipped spoon. If you're lucky, your bowl is warm from the fire. It's made from barley flour and baked on a flat stone by the fire. There's a crunchy surprise in every bite sometimes. It's a seed. Sometimes it's ash. Sometimes it's a tiny pebble. Keeps you awake. Topics range from livestock ailments to the weather to whether anyone has seen the soapberry basket. No one complains. That's the rule. The head gets fed first, the rest fall in line. Power dynamics are simple here. Whoever chops the most firewood gets the last word. Soapberries, it turns out, are their idea of a cleansing agent. You make a mental note to stay slightly dirty. The steam from the pot still clings to your eyebrows. He occasionally blows on the wood, then resumes scraping. That seems better left alone. He's already made 3 today. He doesn't need them. He just enjoys whittling. Maybe the quiet. A chicken hops onto the table, pecks a crust, then casually strolls off. No one stops it. If you're not, it's warm because someone else used it 10 minutes ago. It's wrapped in moss and fur, tied with sinew, and smells faintly of vinegar and goat. One of them explains it's being cured for winter. You nod, pretending to understand. You absolutely don't. The kind of full that makes you want to lie down and stare at the rafters. The liquid is brown. Always brown. Brown seems to be the Viking flavor palette. You rise slowly, resisting the call of the firs behind you. There's still more to see. The stew is chewy, slightly sour, and oddly sweet in places, like someone dropped a berry in just to see what would happen. You've tasted the stew, you've chewed the bread. If you ever get back to your own kitchen, you may never complain about oatmeal again. Slow, deliberate, full of small talk and big silences. Outside, the wind rattles the wooden walls like a bored ghost looking for mischief. You find yourself sinking with it, your own motions slowing, softening. There's no rush. Food is fuel, but also an anchor moment when the fire warms faces, when the smoky air feels thicker with presence than with particles. You chuckle too, realizing it was probably intentional. A joke, Viking style. And judging by the grin on the old man's face, he's proud of it. It's not terrible. It's also not something you'd ever voluntarily order. A woman adds something that looks like moss. She claims it's seasoning. You don't argue. There are no individual servings. Meals are communal one pot, many mouths. You suspect the truth depends on how often the supply ship arrived and whether the goat had a good week. It's a weak, fermented honey drink more sour than sweet, like someone left a tea party in the rain for 3 days. Still, it goes down easier than the stew. You take a bite. Someone offers you a chunk of bread, dense as a roof tile. Historians still argue whether Viking food was as bland as we think, or whether the use of local herbs and pickling gave it more complexity. To drink, you're handed a wooden cup of mead, which sounds fancier than it is. Around you, the family chats in a rhythmic, half-mumbled cadence. The head of the household, a stoic man with hands the size of dinner plates, stakes the last ladleful of stew. You lean back on a fur-covered bench and soak it all in. A teenage boy sits near you, carving a spoon with intense concentration. Meanwhile, someone begins mashing fish with a rock. They're making fish paste. You try not to make eye contact. On the far side of the Longhouse, 2 older women are preparing a strange-looking bundle. Nearby, a small barrel gurgles ominously. You ask what it is. The answer, fermenting birch sap. You nod again. Despite the odd textures and questionable aromas, mealtime here is a social ritual. Children lick the last of the stew from their spoons. A dog curls under the bench, eyes half closed. The Longhouse breathes in rhythm. Fire, crackle, spoon, scrape, slurp, sigh, repeat. Then someone belches loudly. It echoes off the rafters. The room goes quiet for a beat. And then laughter. Low, warm, contagious. You return your bowl to the edge of the fire pit and wipe your hands on your cloak. No one expects manners. Just basic survival. Your stomach is surprisingly full. Or maybe just confused. Either way, you feel heavier. Sleepier. Above you, strings of onions sway gently with the smoke. Someone's humming a ganofki, but consistent, like a lullaby from another life. Mealtime drifts into cleanup, which is really just shoeing the chickens and covering the pot with a lid made of bark and bone. But now the Longhouse feels different, warmer, fuller, more alive. By now, The stew has settled into your belly like a warm rock, and you've migrated to one of the Longhouse benches again, trying to ignore the splinter pressing ominously against your thigh, not with fanfare, but with a sideways glance, a clearing of the throat and the casual drop of a name like, you remember Haldus, the one who slipped on that fish skin? Around you, the household falls into a kind of post-meal quiet, drowsy, domestic, and deeply communal. But the rhythm is soothing. Someone chuckles. Another shakes their head slowly as if to say, "Ah, Haldus." Even the chickens seem to pause, one leg slightly raised in suspense. This is when the storytelling begins. And just like that, the Longhouse leans in. Not physically. There's no room for that, but mentally. The gentle roast of a relative who's not here to defend themselves. The story wins. It's not short. Les apparently had a complicated relationship with her neighbor's goat, a fondness for berry wine. You step over 3 legs to reach your seat and no one blinks. You oblige. She giggles when you hit a knot and then does the same to you with surprising vengeance. Someone accidentally sits on a cat, the cat leaves. That's just life. For the smell, you assume, or possibly a charm, or just something to do. It's hard to tell. They resolve it by sharing a strip of dried elk meat. Peace offerings are edible here. Another says it was probably just spirits looking for fish. A third says it was the neighbor's son being dramatic again. All 3 are probably right. And a tendency to dramatically fake injuries to get out of laundry duty. You try to follow along, though the details swirl as much as the smoke. Names you don't know. Places you've never seen, you don't ask. Some mysteries are more soothing unsolved. It's not about the facts. It's about the telling. It's the warmth of shared memory. You freeze. It yawns and immediately falls asleep. You feel honored. Of someone returning with a comb made of walrus bone. You're not sure what the bigger deal is, the wedding or the comb. The old woman telling the story is missing 3 teeth and doesn't care. Shadows dance on the beams, and the fire's glow makes everything feel like it's moving, slow, soft, almost breathing. You can hear someone humming softly again, this time closer. You belong here now, for tonight, for just a while longer. It might be the same off-key tune as before. Maybe you're just imagining it. Given the volume of passive-aggressive grunts you've witnessed, the truth likely lies in between. The space absorbs you, like wood takes in smoke. The baby hiccups. Life resumes. She leans into every word like a weaver tightening her loom. Children sit in laps or curl under cloaks, eyes half-lidded but listening. Outside, the wind picks up. The door rattles on its hinge. No one flinches. The fire crackles. A log splits. Sparks shoot up like tiny orange spirits. You catch snippets of another conversation nearby, something about wool prices and a man who owes someone a chicken. It fades into background hum. The Longhouse is full, but not crowded. There's a rhythm, an order to the chaos. Spaces are shared but respected. Historians still argue whether Viking longhouses were truly harmonious, or if tensions ran high in such tight quarters. A young girl passes you a wooden comb. She gestures to your hair, then to hers. Across the fire, a couple argues in hushed tones. Something about a missing knife or possibly a mispronounced name at yesterday's ritual. Someone reaches up to hang fresh herbs above the fire, wild thyme, juniper, maybe something minty. And still, the gossip flows. One man insists he saw lights dancing on the fjord last night. There's talk of a wedding next month, a trade voyage. The Longhouse breathes and shifts. Someone coughs. Someone snores. Someone mutters a curse under their breath and immediately says a prayer to offset it. It's hard not to feel like part of the room itself, just another bundle of limbs and thoughts wrapped in wool. You spot a pile of items near the far wall. Tools, carved wooden bowls, an iron pot, and a single woven basket filled with feathers. A dog, possibly the same one from earlier, or its identical cousin, rests its chin on your foot. Eventually, the stories die down, not with a conclusion, but with a shrug. The tale fades. Someone coughs. The Longhouse doesn't require constant entertainment. Sometimes the best part of the day is just being near the fire, listening to nothing in particular. The post-meal haze thickens. Conversations fade to murmurs. A girl nearby is threading beads into her braid. They clink softly as her fingers move. She doesn't look up, just braids. A man scratches his beard thoughtfully, then suddenly announces that Pig never should have been left alone. No one asks for context. They all seem to agree. You glance at the ceiling, where smoke coils lazily like a sleepy snake. Someone starts sharpening a knife in the corner again, still not threatening, just methodical. And in the quiet hum of breath and wool and old stories, you let your own thoughts drift. The goat is staring at you again, or perhaps a different goat. It's difficult to tell in the flickering firelight. Each goat carries the same unimpressed expression and the faint aroma of wet hay. Either way, it's inching closer to your bedding. Then you quickly learn something new. Viking longhouses didn't separate people from livestock. That's right. Welcome to open-concept medieval living, where privacy is a fantasy and your bunkmate might chew cud in their sleep. It doesn't budge. It's clearly a seasoned longhouse resident. You shift your foot, trying to nudge the goat away without starting an interspecies turf war. Some reconstructions show divided stalls, others a free-for-all livestock lounge. Tonight, you're clearly in the latter. Heat rises, but goats, sheep, and sometimes cows give off body heat that softens the biting cold of Nordic nights. Another tugs on their mother's sleeve and whispers. The chickens are whispering again. The mother nods solemnly and returns to spinning wool. In return, you offer them floor space, mild tolerance, and the occasional bedtime snack. Livestock are essential here not just for food, but for warmth. You can hear it if you focus: breathing, chewing, the click of hooves, the scratch of claws, the snore of a man, and the low grumble of a cow just outside the door. A lullaby, Viking style. Someone across the room mutters something and gently scolds a sheep for nibbling the corner of a blanket. You assume it's an ongoing issue. The sound is thin, reedy, and just slightly off-pitch. Everyone ignores it. You admire the shared patience. There's movement. A rat, perhaps, or a particularly agile cat, scampers along the beam with purpose, like it has appointments to keep. It's not horrible. It's just ... everywhere. The flames rise just enough to reveal a wooden carving behind her, something old and abstract. It might be a household god, or a particularly proud ancestor. She offers no explanation and returns to her family's corner. You don't ask. Nothing here feels like it needs to make sense. You breathe through your mouth until you forget you're doing it. You tuck it higher, letting the weight settle over your shoulders. Above you, the smoke hole lets in a sliver of moonlight. It's the only reminder that time still moves outside these walls. You can still hear the fire crackling, the cow huffing softly outside the door, and Olaf's occasional sigh. The goat, now definitely named Olaf, bleats softly, as if to say, Same. They hop around freely, occasionally inspecting your boots or eyeing the stew pot. And the smell, oh, you get used to it. Eventually, a mix of dung, straw, wet wool, and the persistent undertone of smoke and sweat. You're part of that rhythm now, quiet cog in a wool-covered machine. The tune floats like smoke, curling through the rafters, weaving into the grain of the wood itself. You let it wash over you. Historians still debate whether animals were penned off in a separate wing of the Longhouse or truly shared the same floor. The goat finally settles beside you. Its breath is warm and surprisingly comforting. You wonder if you should give it a name, something dignified like Olaf. Elsewhere in the Longhouse, a child has fallen asleep atop a hay pile, halfway through a storybook made from carved birch panels. The chickens are, indeed, murmuring quiet rustles and occasional clucks, like feathery secrets being passed from perch to perch. Small piglet squeals and is promptly hushed by someone tossing it a chunk of turnip. The balance of peace is restored. This mix of animal and human presence creates a strange harmony. You look toward the rafters where bundles of herbs, dried fish, and what might be a long-dead bird sway gently. A woman near the fire pokes the embers and adds more peat. Nearby, a teenage boy begins playing a bone flute. You try lying down again, shifting into a comfortable curl against the straw-stuffed mattress. Your blanket smells of smoke and old pine. The people here live in cycles, not ours. The sun comes and goes. The animals wake and sleep. The fire burns down and is fed again. A young girl steps around the fire, barefoot, cradling a sleepy duck. You yawn. The goat mirrors you. You feel vaguely mocked. In the far end of the hall, a couple begins singing soft, wordless hums. The sounds of night deepen. Someone sneezes. Someone farts. Someone mutters what might be a prayer or a shopping list for tomorrow's bartering session. And through it all, the livestock sigh, snort, and settle in beside you. A living, breathing insulation, not glamorous, not poetic, but undeniably real. You close your eyes. It's strange, but you've never felt more part of something. You are not just in the Longhouse, you're of it. It's well into the night now, or early morning maybe. Time isn't exactly precise in the Longhouse, but there are no clocks, no bells, just the rhythm of breath, fire, and livestock noises. You shift under your fur blanket and try to settle back into sleep, but the Longhouse has other plans. It starts with a thud, followed by a loud snore, and someone mumbles in their sleep. Then something creaks overhead, probably the rafters, or something living in the rafters. You pretend you're asleep. That seems to satisfy it. You're not sure. You don't ask. The shifting groans of wooden beams reacting to the cold. Not silence, not peace, but the low, constant churn of shared existence. This is what nighttime in a Viking longhouse really sounds like. Snuffles from the sheep. The steady choo-choo of a cow finishing some late-night straw. You lie there, eyes open in the dark, and begin to catalog it all. One person grinding their teeth. A few glowing red coals cast faint shadows on the walls. The longhouse is wrapped in its own heat, and you're swaddled in it whether you want to be or not. Two separate pairs of people whispering, one baby half crying, half singing in its sleep, or maybe someone's using it as a foot salve. You don't want to know. And an unmistakable fart echoing like it's searching for someone to blame. Living, breathing, dreaming people. It's not claustrophobic. It's communal. There's a difference. The timber planks are rough, marked with knife scratches and burn spots. A few names have been carved into the wood. You run your fingers along one runa, not angry, more like chanting. Their hands move in small gestures, almost like counting, a nighttime prayer. You lie back down. The fire crackles. Someone groans in their sleep, followed by a sheep bleating as if to say, "Me too." Or just someone who got bored one winter and had a knife. Others suggest they just powered through the smoke like warriors of the lungs. The straw beneath you rustles. A mouse, probably. Or maybe just the straw sighing under your weight. There's a certain comfort in knowing every sound, every scent. Every uncomfortable lump in your bed belongs to a world that is entirely alive. Either way, it's not worth investigating. Just people, their warmth, their noises, their lives. You float in it, held by it. Given your current experience, the latter seems more accurate. A voice old enough to have seen too many winters, singing low to no one in particular. Even with the fire mostly out, someone has laid a fresh log near the coals, ready for morning. A gesture of foresight, a quiet offering to the future. Likely the latrine outside door, possibly the woodpile for more fuel, the way they'll be back. This is not your average bedtime ambience. But weirdly, it works. The fire has burned low now, mostly embers. The air is thick, not just with smoke, but with people. Historians still argue about how well ventilated Viking homes truly were. Some believe clever vent holes and open eaves kept things breathable. You sit up slightly and look around. In the far corner, someone is muttering. There's a distinct scent in the air-burnt fat, wool, stale milk, and something herbal. Maybe the time someone hung up earlier. A rat skitters across a beam above you. Or a cat, honestly. At this point, anything is possible. You let it be. You turn on to your other side and face the wall. She could have been a daughter, a visitor. You smile faintly. Some things never change. A soft cough to your left. Someone rising. They step around sleeping bodies, careful not to kick a goat or step on a child. Their destination, you roll back onto your back and try to relax. Your blanket has slipped halfway off. You pull it back up and nestle deeper. You slowly, matching the pace of the Longhouse. There's no insulation, no doors separating rooms, no scented candles or white noise machines. You glance toward the central hearth. You close your eyes. Someone shuffles in their sleep. The goat beside you lets out a little sigh. Your own breath slows, softens. You're part of this now. Just one more figure in the Longhouse night. One more set of lungs among many. The strange, comforting orchestra continues. Murmur, cluck, cough, rustle. And finally, just before your thoughts dissolve into dreams, you hear the softest thing of all. A lullaby, hummed from somewhere in the dark, maybe to herself, maybe to the fire, maybe to you. And just like that, you sleep. Morning drifts in without a single bird chirping cheerfully or a rooster crowing on cue. Instead, it arrives more like a suggestion, a slight change in light. The soft clatter of someone already busy, they're all there, if a little tangled. The Gutolif, your now fully integrated bunkmate, still asleep beside you, curled in a perfect circle, radiating surprising warmth, and emitting a sound that can only be described as a snore-bleat hybrid. And the distant sound of someone grumbling about a sore hip, the fire is no longer glowing, just a bed of ashy gray silence. Someone will stoke it soon, and a sigh that seems to have been waiting all night to escape. But for now, the Longhouse is wrapped in a chilly hush. You stretch beneath your wool blanket, stiff as an old axe handle, and take a moment to reacquaint yourself with your limbs. You rise slowly, careful not to disturb your fellow sleepers, both human and hooved. Nearby, a man takes out a half-finished bowl and begins carving. He is heading to the stream war, possibly to the ice pit, where yesterday's clean snow was melted. Judging by today's pace, you'd say it's the latter, with a strong undercurrent of mutual eye-rolling. He doesn't complain, just puts on his boots and goes. His hands, weathered and cracked, move like they've never known another purpose. One girl is sweeping the floor with a bundle of dried reeds. They seem to come to an agreement. Or barley. Or maybe both. You're not sure, but it's bubbling. Mostly she's moving dust from one end of the room to the other. But she looks proud. Then the cough, the signature signal of mourning. One loud throat-clearing blast from the oldest man here, followed by a string of muttered complaints, a cracked joint or two. She hums as she works something repetitive and calming, with no identifiable melody. A few rise slowly, grabbing tools well, sticks and crude hammers, and prepare for the climb. The air is sharp, fresh, and utterly unforgiving. Insulates well, but sags under the weight of snow, rain, and time. It needs frequent prodding and patching. From up here, you can see the other longhouses, the blacksmith's hut, and the frozen stream winding behind the village. Your breath fogs instantly, and your boots crunch into snow as you trudge to the side of the house. A child sits up and immediately starts asking questions. Somewhere below, someone yells, "Watch for the weak spot." You freeze mid-step. The entire roof looks like a weak spot, the kind that makes the longhouse run, stitch by stitch. It begins. But judging by the constant stream of grumbling, this was definitely a regular event. A pot is balanced precariously on a stone ring. Inside, gruel. The Viking breakfast of champions. The warmth hits you like a hug. Olaf the goat blinks in your direction and shifts to make room. You sit. The morning moves on. Someone pats your back and mutters something in Old Norse that probably means "didn't fall." Good job. You eat in silence, trading brief glances with others. The room comes alive in increments. A wooden spoon clatters to the ground. Someone steps on something soft and curses under their breath. You're pulled into the slow wave of morning activity. Not rushed, not urgent, just expected. A woman begins spinning flax on a drop spindle, her fingers moving with muscle memory passed down through generations. You sit, watching, until someone passes you a bundle of wool and a small wooden comb. You're meant to help tease the tangles out. It's oddly satisfying, pulling tufts apart, smoothing the fibers, preparing them for spinning. This is the work of the day. It's not battles, not voyages, but quiet labor. A boy drags a wooden bucket toward the door. Sloshes water, you think. Historians still debate how structured daily labor was inside Viking households. Some suggest detailed routines, others a more fluid, do what needs doing rhythm. A woman behind you is whittling pegs, not for decoration, but for repairing a wall beam that's begun to creak suspiciously. Children are tasked with the most basic chores: fetching, carrying, not getting trampled. A teenage boy checks the livestock. Each animal gets a head pat, a murmur, and a firm stare. Sheep stares back. The longhouse smells like wool, damp wood, and a bit of boiled something. Someone has already put oats on the fire. You find a wooden stool and join the others by the fire. It's bland, warm, comforting in a vaguely soggy way. Then, From the far end, someone says, "The roof's sagging again." There's a collective groan, the ancient sound of group responsibility. You're drafted in without much ceremony. Someone hands you a ladder and a fur-lined hood. Apparently, you're going up top. You step outside, greeted by the cold slap of Nordic morning. The roof is turf-thatched with layers of sod and grass laid over a wooden framework. You climb slowly, careful not to slip. Out. The wind tugs at your cloak. Still, you press on. You patch a sunken section with a fresh slab of turf, tamping it down with your boot. It feels satisfying. A small act of defiance against the elements. Historians still argue how often Vikings had to perform these rooftop rituals, or whether they had clever engineering tricks we've since forgotten. Once finished, you descend, your hands tingling from the cold and pride. Back inside, the fire has been fed. In this longhouse, nothing happens quickly, but everything happens together. Mid-morning settles in like a second blanket thicker than the first, heavier with the scent of hard work, smoke, and simmering broth. The chores don't stop, of course, but they change tempo. Everyone seems to know the rhythm without thinking. You're re-wiping melted snow from your sleeves with a strip of rough cloth, when someone gestures toward a wooden tub in the corner. Laundry, or what passes for it. The tub is filled with cloudy water, a mush of ash soap, and a few sad-looking tunics bobbing half-heartedly on the surface like they've given up. They pass you a paddle, and with a resigned breath you start stirring. The garments slosh and tangle like reluctant eels. Laundry in the Viking era is not a daily ritual. You scrub a sleeve, it's unclear whether the cloth is getting cleaner or just wetter. It's more of an endurance test that happens when absolutely necessary or when the clothes begin to stand up on their own, which might be today. You join two women already kneeling beside the tub. But everyone around you is doing it too, with a sort of determined resignation that makes it almost bearable. One woman shoos it away with a muttered threat that sounds oddly specific. You don't ask. This time, not for repairs, but to join the others at the communal chopping block. It must be split, even if you've just begun to feel your fingers again. Soap here is made from wood ash and animal fat, boiled into a lumpy paste that smells like both a campfire and something faintly medicinal. The cold air sharpens your breath into tiny clouds. You try a swing, it lands. Sort of, everyone pretends not to notice. You quietly commit never to complain about anything again. Chicken hops up onto the rim of the tub and peers in with suspicion. You look at the line of tunics and breeches like a flock of damp ghosts swaying above your head. A flat plank with rope handles is dragged over, and the wood is stacked atop it, ready to be hauled back to the longhouse. This isn't glamorous. Your hands are already raw from cold, and now the soap stings a little. Someone mutters, "You earned it," in the tone of a general offering a medal. You sit beside it, boots steaming gently, and feel your muscles hum from honest work. The bread is tough, the butter is salty, and the berries taste like forgotten summer. Either way, they smell like comfort. It's oddly satisfying. You sip, it tastes of meat, salt, and possibly fish. You're too tired to care. Meals aren't formal things. They just happen when the food's ready. You close your eyes for just a moment, and today, that means a bit of stew scraped from the earlier pot. Fresh bread scraped with something they claim is butter, and a few dried berries passed around like treasure. You faced off against a goat and won some respect, You watch as he patiently works the details into its tiny legs, the kind that comes from shared wariness and too many layers of wool. Someone drops a spoon. No one picks it up. It stays there, part of the floor now. His sister leans over and says, "That looks like a pig." He doesn't argue. He just carves the ears bigger. The sled is heavier than it looks, and the snow-packed trail back to the house is deceptively uneven. You fall only twice, which is apparently considered impressive. Historians still argue whether Vikings washed clothes regularly or relied on seawater and occasional snow scrubs. The truth is probably both, and neither method leaves you feeling particularly fresh. After a while, the cleanish garments are wrung out and hung on a rope near the fire close enough to dry, far enough not to catch fire. Someone calls your name more, at least the nickname you've earned here, the one who fell off the roof. It sticks. You're summoned outside again. The axe is heavier than you expect. The logs are stubborn. A woman next to you, gray-haired, wiry, and clearly made of steel splits, a log with one hand while balancing a baby on her hip. You fall into rhythm. Lift, swing, split. The sound echoes down the hill through the forest. It's a good sound. A necessary one. Once a decent pile has formed, someone calls for the sled. You volunteer. Big mistake. It's back inside. You're handed a cup of hot broth. The fire feels different now, less like warmth and more like reward. A boy nearby is carving a small horse from driftwood. There's laughter, low and sleepy. The Longhouse settles again into its midday lull. You chew slowly, your jaw sore from the cold. Above you, the herbs sway gently in the smoke. You recognize rosemary and maybe thyme. Or it could just be dried weeds. And the sounds return softer now. A whisper, a rasp of leather against wood. A girl humming to herself while braiding rope. You've split wood. You've stirred laundry. Are for now a functioning part of this Longhouse world. Afternoon leans heavy against the wooden beams of the Longhouse, like a sleepy cat stretching in a sunbeam. Outside, the light has taken on that cold silver tone that says dusk, ISNT far off, even if your body's convinced it's already been a long day. You're called again this time not for work, but for craft. It's time to make something. Everything here is rough, but refined. Tools worn smooth by generations of hands. A pile of tools sits on a low bench. Bone needles, wooden combs, carving knives, bits of wool, antler shavings, sinew, and most intimidating of Ola spindle. Tight, geometric, perfect despite being made in near darkness with no ruler in sight. You sit beside a woman weaving with a tablet loom. Her fingers fly across the threads like a bird picking berries sharp. Sure, rhythmic. She doesn't speak at first, just motions for you to watch. The colors are limited deep browns, reddish ochres, undyed wool, but the patterns are beautiful. You're handed a scrap of wool, a needle carved from bone, and a nod. Time to earn your place in Viking textile society. You try to stitch a simple pattern. Your first attempt loops like seaweed in a storm. The second resembles a tangled snake. He tosses something onto the benchier, freshly trapped hair. The children gather around it with interest, one poking it and asking if they can keep the fur. By the third, someone is politely suppressing a laugh. You get a half smile and a raised eyebrow, the Viking version of good effort. The meat will go into the stew, the fur into mittens. Nothing is wasted. The scent of pine sap and wool clings to everything. Its hair is braided flax, its eyes tiny knots. She names it Storm Daughter. You nod solemnly. You see it in every carved spoon, every embroidered sleeve, every bone needle perfectly honed. Your fingers ache from the cold, but you manage a half-decent stitch. Someone nods. You beam like you've won a medal. Doesn't look up as you watch, just says, "It's for my uncle. He dreams of bears." Is the answer? Winter pickles. You smile bravely. You nod again. It seems like reason enough. The woman next to you begins to sing a slow, lulling song that loops back on itself like thread through fabric. Your stitches are uneven, your fingers are sore, but there's something deeply satisfying about the act of making. A new log hisses as it catches, steam rising like a ghost shrugging into the rafters. You've added something to the Longhouse, tiny thread of yourself. You catch none of the words, but all of the joy. The lyrics are about wolves in winter and a girl who turned into a tree. A child hands you a wooden thimble. It's too big. Use it anyway. You made. You belonged. They're not magical today. It's a message, possibly a tally, possibly a complaint. They blur with the smoke and flicker against the carved walls like old memories replaying themselves. One flutters onto a bench and then off again like a confused feathered acrobat. You're tempted to write your own. Please no more goats. Still, it's peaceful. The fire crackles beside you. Wind begins to push at the seams of the house. The beams creak like they're thinking about retiring. Historians still argue about the complexity of Viking weaving. Some believe intricate brocades were common. Others think they were reserved for chieftains and ritual wear. You suspect the answer is the same as always. It depends on how bored the weaver was. You watch as someone nearby begins carving runes into a piece of driftwood. It outs the door, the cold deepens. A man enters, stomping snow from his boots. The process is quick and practiced. You're handed a strip of leather to help with lacing new shoes. It smells like smoke and vinegar. Crafting here is not hobby, it's survival. It's necessity made beautiful. A girl shows you a doll made of wool and twigs. A boy is carving what looks like a bear from a block of soapstone. The fire spits suddenly, sending up a crackle that startles the chickens. Someone stirs the pot. Scent of hair mixes with onions and something sour. You ask what the sour smell is. You continue stitching, your hands more confident now. You don't ask if it's true. Around here, most stories are a little true. As the sun lowers, though, you can see it directly. The shadows in the Longhouse stretch long and strange. You lean back. The fire is fed again. You rest your head against the timber wall. Around you, the Longhouse breathes. The fire crackles. Child laughs. Someone tells a joke in Old Norse. You look down at your crooked stitches, the tiny sliver of leather between your fingers. It's not much, but it's real. You helped. Dusk wraps itself around the Longhouse like a well-worn cloak. The outside world fades into blue shadow, while inside, the hearth takes center stage, again flickering, snapping, whispering stories in a language older than the runes carved into the walls. Evening is coming, and with it a new ritual. The meal. No, this is the quiet kind of feast. A stew that's been simmering all afternoon. Bits of hair, wild onion, last summer's dried mushrooms, and a ladle of something pickled that you've stopped questioning. Not the grand feast you might imagine with horn blowing and roasted boar piled high. You take a bite. You're handed a bowl wooden. Warm to the touch, and a horn spoon that's been polished smooth by 100 other hands before yours. It's better than you expected. The hair's tender, the broth savory, and the sourness works somehow. It tastes like the end of a long day. Everyone eats together, shoulder to shoulder. You chew slowly. Sticks to your teeth a little, but you don't mind. It's no assigned seating, no head of the table, just proximity warmth, and the universal agreement not to elbow each other too hard. Someone passes around flatbread, thin as birch bark, and slightly burnt on one side. Judging by this stew, both may be true. One man begins telling of a sea voyage that may or may not have happened. The wind was fierce. The fish were enormous. Someone nearly married a seal. He nods solemnly and eats around it. No drama, just efficiency. The baby from earlier, finally awake again, grabs a spoon and flings a spoonful directly into her father's beard. The crowd murmurs approval. The seal story evolves. His sister says it was probably just Uncle Ingmar coming back from the outhouse. Soft, worn-in jokes about whose turn it is to scrape the pot. Someone throws the dregs into the fire. Someone else licks their fingers and wipes them on their trousers. Debates over whether the stew tastes like last week's or last month's. Either way, it burns just a little going down and makes your limbs feel looser. Each note seems to land directly in your chest and settle there. This is not a performance. It's sustenance. It's a meal designed to warm the bones and quiet the belly. Still, there's laughter. The figure is tucked away again, quiet and watching. The Longhouse creaks like an old man stretching his back. Historians still argue over Viking culinary habits. Some believe they used elaborate spices from trade routes. Others say they boiled everything until it surrendered. You do? It's gray, slightly shiny, and very lucky-looking indeed. You nod with great seriousness. She beams. The fire dims, just a little. The animals are fed too. The goats munch contentedly on hay. The chickens peck at fallen crumbs. You catch glimpses of people's faces lit from below, eyes gleaming, cheeks flushed, lines deepened by years and weather. Even Olaf seems to approve of tonight's menu. Nothing dramatic, just a few people gathering around a carved wooden figure. They light a bit of resin, murmur words too old for understanding, and place small offerings. A berry, a hairpin, a sliver of bone. After the food, there is cleaning just enough to not attract more rats than usual. And then, slowly, the evening begins to settle in like a sleepy guest who knows exactly where to sit. The stories return, not shouted, not staged. It's drifted into. You listen half laughing, half lost in the rhythm of it. The old woman beside you adds her version. Someone's name was definitely different. The seal was, in fact, a very hairy man. A boy interrupts to insist he saw a Drogran undead Viking walking past the forest edge last night. No one confirms. No one denies. Around here, both are equally possible. You sip something warm from a shared horn. It's tangy and slightly fermented. Mead, maybe, or sourberry juice. The fire has grown strong again. Shadows leap on the walls. The rafters groan in response to the temperature shift. A young girl plays a tune on a lyre-plucked note, uneven and soft. It's not a song you recognize, but it slows your thoughts. The light is low, no amber and orange, with hints of smoke drifting lazily up to the thatch. Someone snores already. A man chuckles and tucks a blanket around the sleeper. Another stifles a yawn. You do the same. There's a small ceremony happening in one corner. You watch quietly. No one explains. But the air feels stiller in that corner, like the Longhouse is holding its breath for just a moment. Then someone sneezes, someone laughs, and the spell breaks. Life returns. Outside, you can hear the wind again. Louder now, it taps at the walls like it wants in. But the Longhouse holds firm. It always does. You're offered another sip of that mystery drink. You accept. It's warmer this time. Or maybe you're just feeling it more. A child tugs on your sleeve and asks if you want to see her lucky rock. The stories continue. The laughter softens. You lean back, blanket over your knees, and exhale slowly. This is the Viking evening. Not conquest, not chaos. Just quiet company, warm broth, old stories, and a lucky rock. The fire's glow dims into a soft heartbeat, pulsing gently across the packed earth floor. Its light no longer dances, it rests, curled into a bed of orange coals. Round it, the Longhouse yawns. You can feel the evening winding down, like a song nearing its final verse. You're still awake, but not by much. Your eyes trace the shadows on the beams above, now familiar enough to feel like an old ceiling in a childhood home. The sounds are quieter now. No chopping, no scraping bowls, no playful goat headbutts. Just the occasional creak of timber and the deep breathing of people slowly melting into sleep. Someone gently sets a clay oil lamp on a nearby ledge. Its flame flickers low, barely bright enough to reveal a carved spiral pattern on the wall behind it. Something decorative or symbolic, or maybe just a doodle made during a long winter. A corner that smells faintly of smoke and unavoidably Olaf. Here. There is nothing but the space you take up and the quiet respect not to step on someone's foot in the dark. The Longhouse has changed since morning, not in shape, but in mood. A chicken flutters gently in its sleep on the overhead beam, rustling feathers in that soft, dry paper way. A foot shifts, wooden comb falls. Another has wrapped his arms around a carved wooden toy, cradling it like a pet. Her drop spindle moves slowly, as if the wool itself is getting sleepy. Eventually, her fingers pause and she simply sits still, content, watching the fire. Did they name them after gods? After battles? After goats? Someone whispers, "Sorry," and the walls creak like old bones adjusting in their sleep. There's a softness to it now, a collective exhale. You sit back down slowly. Olaf, already curled at the foot of your sleeping spot, blinks at you once. The universal goat expression of approval or disapproval. You've stopped trying to interpret. Welcoming, woven into the fabric of sleep, your own bedding calls, straw mattress, wool blanket. You're part of this strange, smoky, beautiful whole. You don't catch the words. You don't need to. Before settling in, you take a moment to look around. But still, it's full, honest, not cushioned or clean, but deeply human. People are settling back into their corners, curling around one another like cats in a basket or a piece of bone. You move it to the side and decide not to think about it too hard. See a man lean against a timber post, gently stroking the braid of the woman beside him. No words exchanged. It's just comfort. A wave of drowsiness rolls over you, heavy and soothing. A mother hums to a baby already asleep. The tune loops, gentle and unhurried, the kind of melody meant less to entertain and more to wrap the night in cotton. The Longhouse sighs around you and you sigh with it. Your blanket welcomes you back like a familiar embrace, scratchy warm, heavy enough to hold you in place. You catch a bit of whispered conversation in the corner, something about trade next week, maybe a journey south, maybe just down the valley. The words fade before you can latch onto them, like mist slipping off a stone. Historians still puzzle over the nighttime routines of Viking families. Did everyone truly sleep in one room? Or were there subtle divisions, perhaps with hides hung between kin? Olaf lets out a breath that sounds suspiciously like a snore. A boy across from you has bundled himself in his cloak like a caterpillar, only his nose peeking out. A woman still spins by the dim light of the oil lamp. A breeze whistles through a crack in the wall. Someone coughs once, then again. No one responds. It's just part of the night. The smoke hole above your head shows a patch of night sky. Stars, faint but present. You wonder what constellations the Vikings saw? Probably. There's a small, hard shape under your back. You reach down and discover a pebble. Sleep in the Viking Longhouse isn't like sleep today. It's layered light, restless, often interrupted. You pull the blanket tighter, tucking it under your chin. The warmth is uneven, but enough. Someone near the fire turns. Bit of wood collapses with a soft hiss. The room flickers. Then stillness. Outside, the wind picks up again, scratches at the roof like an old enemy testing the defenses. The Longhouse doesn't flinch. You close your eyes. There's no silence here, but the noise is familiar now. A voice in the dark murmurs something, maybe a prayer, maybe a joke. You're here, you're warm. And somewhere in the dark, Olaf shifts closer, just in case you forgot. Sometime before dawn, you stir again, not fully awake, just enough to feel the shift in the air. The fire is down to glowing embers, a faint red heartbeat beneath the ash. The Longhouse is at its quietest now. Even the animals seem to know it's not time yet. You don't open your eyes, you just listen. The breathing around you is deep and even. Child mumbles something in a dream. Someone rolls over with a sleepy grunt. A chicken rustles its feathers and then settles again. You let yourself float in that in-between space where thoughts are soft and time is slow. But then, from somewhere outside, a low, distant howl. Not alarming, just a lone wolf letting the forest know it's still alive. The sound carries through the smoke hole like a note held too long. It fades. Silence returns. Subtle, steady motion. The first stirrings of a household preparing to meet the new day. A few heartbeats later, someone near you whispers, "He'll not come close. Not with the goat." You're not sure if they're joking. Probably not. Olaf has that kind of presence. You smile faintly and let the night cradle you again. First the fire, then the water, then the food. Maybe today they'll bring in a fox. Maybe just frozen disappointment. Then life. This time when you wake, it's two motion. Not for decoration, for luck. Maybe for protection. It looks like an M, but it means something older. You ask what it's for. The reply. To keep the door from forgetting us? The bread is fresher, though it cracks, not crumbles. Someone places a log onto the coals, catches slowly, sending up a lazy ribbon of smoke. The Longhouse breathes with it. You're beginning to learn their voices, now who speaks in riddles, who grunts more than talks, who tells stories at odd times of day. Thyme, angelica, yarrow, juniper, and several unnamed bundles that might just be weeds with good PR outside. Faint blue light seeps under the Dora Norse version of sunrise, icy and indirect. Round here, excitement is rare and measured in wool weight or herring barrels. The snow crunches underfoot, and your breath curls like a ghost in the cold air. Another oils a pair of leather boots that look like they've seen more winters than any human in the room. You sit up. The air is brisk, but not biting. The the kind that invites movement. You know the rhythm now. Someone hands you a bundle of kindling. You nod and go outside. You glance toward the forest. No wolf in sight. Just trees standing tall and still, draped in white. Somewhere, traps have been set. You return to the Longhouse with the kindling, stamping the cold from your boots. Inside, the mood is brighter than yesterday. Not cheerier necessarily, but more alert. People speak more. Someone even laughs out loud. They're reenacting a tale told last night, the one with the seal man and the storm. It ends differently every time. Someone's drawing a rune in ash near the doorframe, not just into the Longhouse, but into the life, the rhythm, the humor, the warmth, the smoke, the daily dance of mundane magic. You pretend to understand. They smile anyway. The edges curl. The colors shift, subtly earth, reds, smoky blues, undyed cream. Breakfast is stew again. This time thinner, with more root vegetables and fewer surprises. The flakes gather on the roof. You hope it doesn't sag again. You perform it with quiet dignity. You ask if she's going. She shakes her head. But my thread will be there. There's talk of visitors, a trade party. Maybe you perk up. The idea of new faces, new stories, new goods, that's exciting. After breakfast, the work shifts to gathering, checking, mending. Someone sharpens blades. You're given a task. Sort the dried herbs. You sneeze 3 times, which earns you a string of well-meaning advice. Rub seal fat on your chest. Breathe through a sheep's wool scarf. Stand on one foot while thinking of the sun. You decide to just keep sneezing. Later, a woman unrolls a length of woven cloth across the floor. It's long, detailed, and beautiful in its imperfections. It's a gift, she says, for a wedding happening in the next village. There's a poetry in that. You tuck it away for later. Outside, the snow begins to fall again light this time, like flowers shaken through fingers. Children play near the doorway, using carved sticks as tiny swords. One child insists he's the seal this time. Another declares he's Thor again. You're given the role of the fish. As the afternoon begins to tip toward dusk again, you feel it. You've settled. You scratch your nose, pull your blanket closer, and smile. The sky outside darkens again, and with it comes a hush and unspoken agreement that the day is done. But unlike the sharp silence of dawn or the busy murmur of dusk, this is something gentler, a collective sigh. You're back at your spot by the wall, legs tucked under your blanket, hands warm from holding a smooth wooden cup filled with a drink that tastes slightly of honey and something fermented, but kind. The soft rasp of blade on wood has become a sort of music by now, like the rhythm of waves or the tick of a clock in a quiet room. You wonder how many spoons this Longhouse has produced? Hundreds, probably, maybe more. Each one slightly uneven, each one still perfect. The Longhouse smells of wood smoke, wool, and the faint, lingering scent of stew that has worked its way into every fiber. Someone is whittling again. A new story begins. A man with deep lines on his face and eyebrows that could be legally classified as wild begins telling of a shipwreck, not his, but his grandfather's, or someone's grandfather. Too much noise might wake the fire or the baby or worse. Olaf. It starts quietly, like it doesn't want to interrupt the fire. The only survivor was the youngest sailor, who clung to a barrel of dried fish and washed up 3 days later, smelling worse than the fish. The man carving doesn't answer right away. Instead, he tosses a small piece of wood into the fire and says, "That's what we call a question best left for morning." Here it's both. Everyone listens. everyone imagines. The ship hit a rock, cracked like an egg, and spilled its men into the sea. He married the innkeeper's daughter, became a trader, and never ate fish again. Everyone chuckles, but no one laughs too loudly. This time, she adds new verses. The tree laughs. The wind sings. The roots hold secrets. You lean back against the timber wall and feel it give a little, like it remembers your weight. The glow lights his face, revealing a long scar across his jaw. He catches you looking and grins. A comb accident, he says. You blink. He doesn't explain. She fingers them as she speaks, naming each as if it is part of a map. This one from the south coast. This one from the east forest. This one from my mother's sleeve. A daily gesture. A wordless prayer. You see them touch their forehead to the timber and exhale. One of the elders pulls a thin string of beads from her pouch. Amber, bone, stone each, one smooth with age. You ask if they're magical? She shrugs. Only if you need them to be. To the rune on the door? To the thread woven into a wedding dress you'll never see. Outside, the wind has returned. But it sounds different tonight. Not angry. Not testing the roof. Just passing by. A traveler with no business here. A boy near the fire asks a question you didn't quite catch. The boy nods like he understands. You do too. Historians still discuss whether Viking children were told bedtime tales, or if stories were for adults alone. A girl beside you hums the same tune from last night, the one about the tree girl. You close your eyes. Not to sleep yet, just to listen differently. The goats shift. The chickens coo in their high perch. The longhouse sighs again. Someone moves near the doorway and drops a carved token into a small bowl. Copy the motion without thinking. It feels good, not religious, not ritual. Just, grounding. A man stirs the embers, coaxing a final wave of heat before the night truly takes over. Your stomach is full. Your hands are clean. Your feet are warm. This is comfort in its oldest form. It's not plush pillows or cotton sheets, but shared breath, handmade cups, firelight shadows, the soft clatter of a comb across the floor. You hear someone whisper a name, not yours, not someone in the room, maybe a dream name, maybe someone remembered at this hour every night. You let your mind wander to the woods, to the ships, to the sea. The fire hisses. The wind sighs. And Olaf mercifully settles. Sleep comes in layers here. You drift in and out like tide on a northern shore, never quite gone, never quite fully back. Not a deep modern sleep with blackout curtains and sound machines. Just the color of the smoke hole above and how heavy your limbs feel. It's sleep shaped by firelight, goat breath, and the creak of ancient timber. You don't know what time it is. No one does. There's no clock, no bell. You roll over slowly, the straw mattress crackling faintly beneath you. Your blanket still slightly itches, wrapped tightly, as if the longhouse itself wants to keep you in place. Someone across the room whispers in their sleep. The words are too soft to make out, but the tone is gentle, almost musical. Maybe it's a dream about rowing or reindeer. I apologized. Then he shrugs and heads toward his corner. No one says more, or both. Then the sound of movement, not fast or panicked, just deliberate. Someone is up, probably heading outside, she says. The gods must have dropped it, and smiles. Others argue they stayed inside for days, living on dried stores in each other's nerves. Judging by today, both are probably true. A woman hums to match it, eyes half closed, weaving a melody without words. You nod solemnly and sweep up the shards like sacred relics. The door creaks open. Cold gust slides in like a whispering ghost, touches your face, then disappears as the door closes again. It's not a performance. It's a release. A way to stretch the soul without standing up. Someone deep in the corner starts snoring like a saw being dragged through wet wood. You hear it landing on the roof, tiny, soft, deliberate, a hush from the sky. A man comes back inside, boots crunching, face ruddy from the cold. He brushes snow from his cloak and sets a small bundle near the fire. 2 fish. Not large, just enough. Whoever it was doesn't return for a while. They're probably checking the traps, or communing with the moon, or just needed a moment alone to think. Night work is quieter, mending, cleaning, oiling, there's something calming about it, almost meditative. The embers have formed a shape, maybe a bird, maybe a face. You blink and it changes. Smoke dances upward. It always does. Not just the walls and the sounds, but the rhythm. The way things unfold. The warmth of work. The hum of shared stories. The peculiar peace of being part of something older than schedules and alarms. You're not planning to fall asleep. You stir again when the door opens a second time. Someone mutters about the fire needing more pine. Another says, tomorrow. Everyone agrees. This one's about a woman who married a bear. But not just any bear, a bear with opinions. He disliked soup, spoke in riddles. He danced, but only in summer. Notices you watching and says they were sleeping too. The fire is fed. The new light makes the longhouse glow, and patches some walls flicker. Others disappear into shadow. It reminds you of a cave. The storyteller nods gravely and adjusts the plot accordingly. The story is nonsense, but it's warm nonsense. Woven with laughter, quiet voices, and the sound of someone sharpening a blade nearby in lazy strokes. A very lived-in cave with goats and woven wall hangings. Nearby, someone begins sorting tools. Carefully, slowly. The tasks here never really stop. They just change tempo. The older woman runs her fingers through the girl's hair without thinking, like braiding wind. You help a girl clean the remains of a clay cup that cracked in the night. Historians still debate how much time Vikings spent indoors during winter. Some say they ventured out daily, regardless of weather. A soft drum beat starts up, not a real drum, just a hand-patting rhythm on a piece of stretched hide. One by one, people join in tapping bowls, slapping knees, humming along. You tap your own foot softly. It makes no sound under the blanket, but you feel it. You're part of it. Outside, the snow begins again. Inside, the rhythm fades. Someone coughs. Someone else offers a drink. You stifle a laugh. Others do too. The sound spreads quiet chuckles rolling like soft thunder under the beams. No one shushes it. You turn over again, back to the fire. The man who caught the fish starts telling a new story. Halfway through the tale, someone adds a detail. He played the flute. Another chimes in, but only with his nose. You close your eyes and listen. A girl wraps herself in a wool shawl and curls against her grandmother. The longhouse, this strange wooden lung you now live inside, expands and contracts with every sleeping breath. You realize slowly, you know it now. A chicken makes one final sleepy noise and settles again. You close your eyes one more time just to rest them, but you do. The final hours before dawn arrive slowly, like fog curling over still water. The Longhouse has grown quiet again, because everyone is asleep, but because the need for words has passed. There's comfort now in the crackle of the fire, in the rustling of straw, in the soft weight of wool against skin. You wake just barely when someone places another log on the fire. The light grows slightly. The shadows shift and stretch. You don't speak, you don't move. You just let the moment happen around you. Or maybe it was never a storm, just the sky expressing itself. Outside, the wind has died down. Snow, if it's still falling, lands like a whisper. The storm has passed. It's the kind of craft that's passed down in muscle memory, not manuals. The spindle dances in her hand like it has somewhere to be. Not the whole floor, just a small section near the doorway, brushing out stray hay, wood chips, the memory of yesterday. The fibers twist into a line so thin you can barely see it, but it holds. A woman near the hearth is spinning thread again. You watch her work with half-lidded eyes. Motion is slow, purposeful, timeless. Was it hearty, sparse? Cold leftovers from dinner. The answer, like everything here, is probably yes to all. Like the people here have stored enough warmth and sleep to face another day. That's good enough for him. He curls up again beside a cousin and is snoring before the fire can pop again. Others will tend the animals. You're asked if you want to help mend a roof beam. You say yes without hesitation. A boy wakes, rubbing his eyes. He asks softly if it's morning. Someone replies almost, a kind of porridge made from grains that have been soaking all night. The snow is clean, undisturbed, glittering faintly like a promise. It smells nutty and faintly smoky. You're handed a bowl before you even sit up. The door shuts behind you, and you're wrapped once again in warmth and the soft smell of burning pine. The cold kisses your cheeks, but you don't flinch. You've adapted. Someone begins sweeping. You sit up slightly and stretch. Your muscles ache in a good way, like they remember the work and approve of your efforts. A few people nod, a few groan, no one argues. The man with the carved walking stick walks by and taps it twice on the floor, some unspoken signal that it is time to start preparing the day. He looks at you with that familiar, unreadable gaze. You nod in return. He approves or not. You've made peace with the mystery. The world is muted, still wrapped in white. A place where time stretches and bends, shaped by firelight and wool in shared silence. Your thoughts drift like smoke, curling gently upward before disappearing into the beams. You've helped build, you've listened, you've laughed, you've learned how to be still. Inside, there's only the sound of crackling embers and slow, steady breathing, but long enough to belong. Let the warmth of the fire linger behind your closed eyes. The goats stir. Olaf stands, shakes, and lets out a sound somewhere between a bleat and a sigh. Someone brings a new pot to the fire, not for stew this time, something lighter. Let Olaf's soft goat snore remind you that even the strangest companions can become home. The porridge is warm and slightly sour. You chew slowly, savoring the texture, the heat, the way it settles low in your stomach like a soft stone. Historians still argue over what exactly Vikings ate for breakfast. You help with the cleanup, your movement's automatic now. You stack bowls, sweep ashes, shake out a hide blanket near the door. No one tells you what to do, you just know. The Longhouse feels lighter this morning, not physically, but in mood. There's talk of heading out after sunrise. A few will go check the boats, see if the ice has thinned enough for a morning haul. A woman walks past, humming a tune you've heard before, only now you realize it's a lullaby. It's the same one she sang the night before to the baby. She sings it to herself now, gently, with no audience. The door creaks open to reveal a sky that's pale and streaked with violet. You step outside for a moment. Your breath clouds the air. The village is quiet. Other longhouses, shaped like sleeping dragons, rise from the white ground. Smoke curls from rooftops. Somewhere a rooster crows, unsure if anyone is listening. You step back inside, shaking snow from your boots. The woman at the loom begins her work. Someone sharpens a blade. The rhythm returns. And in that moment, surrounded by wood and wool, laughter and breath, warmth and story, you feel it. You could stay here. Maybe not forever. Word count, 1093. Wind down, and now. As the longhouse settles into another quiet rhythm, let your breath slow. Outside, the snow falls softer now, as if it's exhausted from the day. You are part of something ancient, a rhythm older than clocks and calendars. Your body rests, heavy and content. There is nothing else you need to do. Let the hum of the longhouse wrap around you like a wool blanket. Let the stories melt into dreams. You are safe here. You are warm. You are part of the longhouse, now woven into its walls, stitched into its memories, resting gently in the slow heartbeat of its wooden ribs. Sleep well, traveler.